All right, let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, they recently made a kind of big move. They traded wide receiver Jefferson. Of course, he is now an Atlanta Falcon, but that's not what we're going to focus on here for a second. We're going to focus on a really smart organizational decision the Rams have made in terms of how they conduct business with the rest of their opposing teams in the NFL. We got a tweet, a report highlighting that, Mice. If you want to throw it up, I will read from it. This is according to Josh Kindle over at The Athletic. Falcons head coach Arthur Smith praised the Rams for being good trading partners Wednesday, one day after dealing for wide receiver Van Jefferson. Like I said, there are some teams it's comical, and other teams there are good working relationships, and we appreciate the Rams, Smith said. Now, look, I know a lot of Rams fans may sit there and say, we don't want opposing teams to appreciate working with us. Yes, you do. All of the great turnaround artists, and that's what the Rams are in right now, total rebuild, right? We saw them go big a few years ago. Now they're revamping the roster. All the great turnaround artists in NFL history were great trading partners. Jimmy Johnson of the Dallas Cowboys, for example, was notoriously great. He traded with everybody and anybody anytime he wanted to, draft picks, players. He was a wheeler and dealer. He worked with opposing coaches. He worked with opposing GMs all the time to make it happen. If you're going to rely on trades, and this is the Rams, this is Les Snead, we know they're going to rely on trades. You need to have this mindset. I think this is another great sign and a great move by the Rams, continuing to maintain these great relationships with other teams. Miles, I'm curious what your thought is on the other side of this. But first, Rams fans, look, big game coming up. Got the Cardinals, division rival. I don't want to say it's a must-have for the Rams, but look, it's going to be a kind of tightly packed NFC. A lot of teams vying for some wild card spots. I think the 49ers likely are going to run away with the division. So if you want to get back off the schneid, this is a good way to get it done. So in the comment section below, give us your prediction, Rams versus Cardinals, for the final score. All right, Miles, let me throw it over to you now. What do you think of the Rams and just their strategy of, I don't want to say playing nice, but being good trading partners and working with other organizations?
Yeah, Nick, I go back to the old adage, what is it? You catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And I think that's true in pretty much every form of business. The more that you are favorable to people, the more they're going to want to work with you. And in this NFL where there are trades and things going on day to day, uh, it is probably better to be liked than feared as far as the trade room goes. People won't constantly be looking over their shoulder thinking, well, how are the Rams trying to screw me? How are they going to work me over? What's the angle that we're going for? If you establish that relationship as a fair trade partner, not that, overly giving, but a guy that is willing to offer a fair trade most of the time, which I think is what the Rams did with Van Jefferson, I think that's going to work out for you really, really well in this sense because you can come to the table. People are going to respect you, know that what you offer them is probably fair market value for a player. And they'll be like, listen, dealt with this team in the past. They've always treated us right. There's no reason to not think that the offer they've put on the table is a fair and reasonable offer. Let's just go ahead and go with them rather than, let's say, you trade with somebody else who is noticeably shysty or noticeably, always trying to work people over, always trying to win the deal. Not saying the Bears are a bad trade partner, but you always hear, they've fleeced people in the past. They've gotten deals done, and they've gotten over on a lot of teams. A lot of these deals look back on the Bears saying they've made really great, they've got out much better than the other side. And that's not the case with the Rams. The Rams seems pretty even across the board, which I think is going to make it easy for them, like you said, to complete this rebuild that they're trying to go through. I think it's a really great move by Les Snead and Co. just to kind of get in people's good graces and help them build this team and help them turn it around. I think, Nick, this is just at its core really good business.
I think that's the great way to describe it. And I'm going to bring up an analogy talking about business, right? The late, great Steve Jobs, founder, CEO of Apple, he actually struggled a lot during the 80s with Apple and a lot of his products before leaving the company. He returned and Apple was a dumpster fire. What was one of the first things he did when he rejoined Apple? He recreated a great working relationship with his biggest rival, Bill Gates, and they worked together on a lot of different things working together. Obviously, Bill Gates at the time was running Microsoft. No one would have looked at Steve Jobs later and say, oh, he's an idiot. Why did he work nice with Bill Gates, maybe his biggest rival? It's because Jobs was smart enough to understand that in order for him to be successful and for his company to be successful, he needed to get in a good working relationship with rivals so they could kind of bounce off each other when appropriate. You brought up the Bears, and that's a phenomenal example. Rams fans, do you want to win the trade or do you want to win football games? We've seen the Bears, and look, the Bears, I think, have a chance to maybe turn it around successful in the long term, but right now they don't look so hot. And the reality is, do you want to be like the Bears are right now that had one good maybe 2 good massive wins in the trade department, and they're going to hope they can maybe fleece somebody later that's not going to want to trade with them because they think the Bears may be pulling one off on them. Or you want to be where you are right now at the Rams. You're a better football team. Your future looks brighter, and you're going to have a lot of opportunities. And here's an important thing to remember. This is one thing a lot of people don't understand. When any other team in the league, when they're trying to ship a player or ship a draft pick, these GMs, they make calls to other GMs that they want to work with. No GM picks up the call saying, all right, I want to trade this player and is looking to get fleeced. He's looking to get a fair deal. If you're the Rams, you're getting every phone call, which means you're going to be open to opportunities for other deals that other teams won't. And that is a big advantage. And here's the other big point I want to focus on here too. Just because a trade is fair for both sides doesn't mean you don't win the trade, right? One side can have a perceived value of their half of the trade that's actually less than it actually turns out to be. So you can still win the trade in the long term, even though both sides think it's fair at the time, and both sides, even in the future, thought it was fair looking back on it. So again, long story short, this is just really smart business by Les Snead and the Rams, because we all know it, right? In order for the Rams to go back to winning Super Bowls again, going back to the Super Bowl and winning it again, they're going to have to make a lot more trades, whether it's through the draft, whether it's in the offseason, whatever it may be. They're going to have to retool a lot of their roster. In order to do that, you need to have people willing to trade with you. And in order to have that opportunity, you need to have people that don't want to not trade with you. That's exactly what the Rams have set up here. I think, again, don't focus on winning the deal. Focus on winning the long term. And I think that's what Les Snead and company is setting up the Rams to do.